couple of young prospects here. Bantamweight bout between Raul Rosas Jr. and that should say Christian Rodriguez, but yeah, that's Christian Rodriguez plus 212 for Christian Rodriguez, minus 212 for Raul Rosas Jr. Over under 2.5 rounds, plus 100 for the over, plus 100 for the under as well. Undefeated Raul Rosas Jr., 18 years old, getting a much better fighter, I think, here than his last time out against Jake Perrin. I think that Christian Rodriguez has got a lot of potential in the UFC. So kind of a couple of young guys going at it. What do you like?
Yeah, like we kind of talked about earlier, it's like if you're the UFC, I feel like you have a lot more potential with Christian Rodriguez than to give him Raul Rosas Jr. right now. Like, why put these guys up against each other when you have like somewhat star potential in Rodriguez and obviously big star potential in Rosas Jr. So it's interesting that they did that. I do think that at the end of the day, Rosas Jr.'s wrestling and grappling is probably going to be too much for Rodriguez. We saw in Rodriguez's first UFC fight against Jonathan Pierce, which is a terrible draw. I mean, that's a nightmare matchup to draw in your first UFC fight. Even though he took it on short notice, it was kind of his entry into the UFC. I think the fight with Rosas here could look a lot similar to that one. I mean, we know Rosas' game plan is going to be come forward, try to get a takedown, try to take the back, grapple until you find a submission or you just completely dominate the fight. And we saw Jonathan Pierce do that exact same thing to Christian Rodriguez. However, Rodriguez is dangerous to catch, a guillotine. He's a strong kid. Some kind of submission like that where Rosas would leave his neck open, or on the feet, catch him with something coming in. I mean, he caught Jonathan Pierce with an elbow at the end of their fight that made it really interesting there. It would have probably wobbled and hurt other guys a lot worse than it did Jonathan Pierce. I just don't see Rosas Jr. losing anytime soon. Like with that grappling pedigree, you're going to win a lot of fights at this level, especially. Rodriguez, I just don't know. We know he's going to win this fight on the feet, obviously, but I just don't know if he's the guy that comes in here and puts a stop to this 18-year-old kid who's kind of going on a tear or wants to go on a tear. And for Rosas Jr., man, for being 18 years old, the kid is incredibly composed. I mean, he with Mondo Gutierrez in that fight on the Contender Series, there was a little adversity there when, he realized, okay, I might not be able to get the submission. I've done everything I can. I've taken the back. I've gotten him into triangles. And I can't get this guy out of here. But he never panicked. He never gassed. He just stayed on him and just dominated that whole fight. So, yeah, I think it looks a lot like that fight, if I'm being honest. I don't know if he's got such a grappling advantage over Rodriguez that he's going to go out there and just steamroll him, get a quick submission. I think this could be kind of a dogfight in a sense that Raul Rosas Jr. is just going to be all over and maybe looking for submissions, but I think it's just going to be a lot closer than people think in terms of, Rodriguez is going to be stuffing a couple takedowns here. Maybe he's just defensive the whole fight, and Raul Rosas Jr. is just offensively chain wrestling and looking for subs. But I just don't know if I see a finish here, honestly. I do think Rosas Jr. wins this fight, probably 30-27, maybe 29-28. But I think it'll be somewhat of a dogfight at times too.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of waiting for like Raul Rosas to show some kind of like age, like okay, maybe this was a little bit too much for him, but I mean, he's only been a pro for like a year and a couple months, so he said he's 6-0 in the past year. He's had 6 fights in the past year. He's 6-0 and 7-0 in his pro career. So he's just taking fights and he's just beating guys like easily. I think this guy's the truth. Like, impressive fight on the Contender Series, won by decision, was in control of the fight the entire time. Goes out in his debut on the feature prelim, so he's right before the main card. Like, most people are in the arena to watch this guy, and he subs Jay Perrin in the first round. So I think you can be confident in this 18-year-old. Like, as crazy as that is to say, I think you can be confident in him. I think he has all the tools to beat Christian Rodriguez. Christian Rodriguez is going to be good in the UFC, but I don't think he wins this fight. I just think Raul Rosas is going to come with a good game plan. He never fights like crazy. He's never like wild. He always seems very composed, and he just finds his way onto your back. He finds his way into positions that are dominant for him, and he's able to transition if you get out of him. So I look at the fight for Christian Rodriguez against Jonathan Pierce. Like, Jonathan Pierce put himself in some really dangerous positions. Like, Christian Rodriguez could have finished that fight a couple times. That was at 145. This is a 135 fight. So I just don't think Rosas will put himself in bad positions like that. Like, Jonathan Pierce is more of a wrestler. He's not really the jiu-jitsu grappler type that Raul Rosas is. Rosas is going to be a little bit more technical in it, a little bit more, slow pace with it, not like shooting last doubles with like Jonathan Pierce and leaving his neck out there right by the hips where you can throw a guillotine in. I think Rosas is just either coasts to a decision or he finds a sub. Like, I just don't see how Rodriguez wins this one. I don't see Rosas putting himself in a bad spot where he can get caught. He's just been around it. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's trains with a lot of the best guys. Rodriguez, he scared me a little bit in that fight against Josh Weems, because Josh Weems is really nothing to write home about. And he got taken down twice by Josh Weems, taken down 6 times by Jonathan Pierce, and taken down twice by Reyes Cortez, who he fought on the Contender Series. So, I mean, he can get taken down, and if he gets taken down by Raul Rosas, he's going to find dominant positions on the ground. He's going to get it. I think he does sub him. I really do. I think he gets a sub.
The one thing too with Raul Rosas Jr. that should make you a little more confident in him is that we know the lights aren't too bright for him. This isn't too big of a stage for him. I mean, he was the marquee fighter on this season of Dana White's Contender Series outside of Bo Nickel. I mean, after Bo Nickel fought, everybody was waiting for Raul Rosas Jr., the 17-year-old kid who had to have permission from his parents to come in and fight. I mean, everybody was tuned in to watch and see what he had. And in the next fight, like you said, everybody showed up to watch him fight in his first UFC debut. And he did, he passed it A+ flying colors easily. Got on the mic. He's good on the mic too. I mean, he's kind of, he's got somewhat of a personality too. So he's a confident kid. And I don't think being, on the pay-per-view main card is going to affect him in any way, shape, or form. I think he's built for this. I really do. So yeah, if you are looking for reasons to be confident in Raul Rosas Jr., there's one right there.
Yeah, and to go off of that, like, Christian Rodriguez could definitely be affected by that. Like, this guy,
for sure.
He's only had 2 fights in the UFC, and they've both been in the Apex. And if you saw what happened to Jay Perrin in that fight, like, he hasn't really been on live events in the UFC before. Like, he's an Apex fighter as well. And then they stick him in there. His job's kind of on the line, and he just folded. Like, he just completely folded. Rodriguez coming in here, his 3rd UFC fight. He's only 26. You're going against a guy that has so much hype around him. Could definitely crumble on a pay-per-view card in Miami. So, yeah, something to definitely keep in mind there.